Hello, I'm Jordan Reed, and welcome to Like Me. Today, we are talking to Joanna Schroeder. She is a writer, a cultural critic, and the author of the very excellent book, Talk to Your Boys. And she is also someone who found herself at the center of the internet simply for naming something she was seeing before most people had language for it. Joanna has spent years thinking and writing about masculinity, parenting, power, and what happens when ideas meant for a specific audience escape into the wider internet, sometimes with real-life consequences. So today we're going to talk about being one of the first to speak the truth and the real-life impact of virality. And unfortunately, we're also going to talk about someone named Clavicular. I'm sorry about that. I'm Jordan Reed, and welcome to Like Me. Okay, we're recording. Yeah, your life trauma is, you went through it, my friend.
Oh, I've been through it a number of times.
Welcome to Like Me, Joanna Schroeder. I am very excited.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So today we are going to talk about the very unique experience of saying something publicly that the culture may not be ready to hear quite yet, accurate though it may be, and oops, accidentally breaking the internet for a little bit. But before we get to that, I wanted to go back and start by asking you about your earliest experiences of being online. What were you writing about? Why did you get into this crazy space?
Yeah, this is kind of a funny thing to think about because I forget that before I even started at the Good Men Project, which was my first official editorial role, around 2011, my best guy friend and I I did a year at Hampshire College, and then I transferred. Hampshire's very like alternate hippie kind of school. And this friend and I did a Tumblr. God, we loved Tumblr. And it was called She Said, He Said. I don't think it exists anywhere anymore, but we would take our friends' questions and then eventually reader questions, and we would answer them as non-professionals, like as your best guy friend and your best girlfriend. And we had like a very dreamy photo that we had up there. It was like definitely our idealized selves. And it was like, ask your best guy friend. And we had like kind of halfway pseudonyms. And it was so fun. And we just gave relationship advice. So as non-experts, and it was so fun. We had so much, things would go like, do you remember it was like a site where if you had something from your Tumblr land on it, it was before Reddit, stumble upon. So if something would hit stumble upon, and then it would be like 10,000, 25,000 views of this little thing that these two rando people were publishing on Tumblr. So we loved that. We had sexy pictures, not of us, but you could like retumble something in the early internet, like a sexy picture.
Yeah, was it called retumbling?
No.
I don't remember. My entree was on Tumblr as well.
Yeah, God, Tumblr was so good.
It was so good.
It was such a vibe. It was so like Gen X.
It's like an emotional scrapbook.
Yeah. And it was all exennials, like our age, like people who are now between the ages of like 40 and 55 or 45 and 55. Like it was where we were, everyone was like us. It was such a vibe. So that was really fun. Our little postings got picked up by the Good Men Project to reprint. And then somehow I ended up becoming an editor there. So technically my first writing online under a pseudonym was about dating and relationships as a goofy friend perspective. And then when I went to Good Men Project, I really started focusing on issues facing boys. So it was just really because I had two little boys at the time. And then I built a career up from there. I was there for 5 years. I started freelancing and doing like real reporting at that time outside of the Good Men Project on things like CTE, like concussions, and should little boys play football. And
and this was way before people were talking about that.
Yeah, this was before the movie Concussion that had Will Smith playing Bennett Omalu. So yeah, I was writing about, just questions like that, things that were emerging that might have to do with boys. And that was at a time when it felt like people were still very focused singularly on girl power, which I'm a big fan of girl power, but it was like I have these little boys and I'm starting to see these issues emerge through my work. So raising awareness around male survivors of a childhood essay and the long-term impacts of them, because there was a whole time when they were oddly marginalized and ignored in the recovery, in the survivorship and survivor abuse recovery communities. So
Absolutely.
it was really strange. So I was doing a lot of that.
What was your readership like then?
What's interesting is I did not have a blog. I
Oh,
was so um, deep at Good Men Project that people could go to my archives, and there's probably 1,000 articles there, just like someone's blog would be. So we had our little advice thing that, I don't know, sometimes we'd have 100,000 views a day on this Tumblr, right? But that wasn't really me. Like, you couldn't Google and find me that way, right? Maybe
right.
now with facial recognition you
Did
could.
that feel like you were insulated from the
Yes.
okay. So
It was
was it like if
very
people
much
had
on
comments about the
purpose.
Good Men Project, it wasn't directed at
Oh,
you
no. Okay,
personally in
so
the way that it
separately,
later
that
was?
original Tumblr, that was very insulated. The Good Men Project was extremely interwoven with my identity, for better or for worse,
Oh,
and very much for worse at that time, actually, because I was not the editor-in-chief. There were things that were above my pay grade, but I was the face of that site, other than the guy who founded it, whose name is
right.
Tom Matlack. So if shit was going down, it was I who had to answer for it, especially because I was a feminist. I was very publicly a feminist, working in this men's space, and men were, it was the very beginning of cancel culture. We called it call out culture. So we were getting canceled or called out, and it was always like, how could you be a feminist and be involved in this thing? Now, some of these things that we were writing about
Yeah.
wouldn't be problematic at all right now. They'd be nothing. But it was generally me who was getting hit like a ton of bricks, and also things that our founder at that time did, that would come back to me. If he said something shady, it was like, I don't know, for some reason, spotlight right on me.
That feels very coded to the aughts. Like now, when people are posting, there is so much of an awareness of if I'm posting this, it really is me, and I
Yeah.
kind of am responsible for my entire platform.
Hmm.
But that wasn't so back then. People were sort of still making that transition to understanding,
Yeah.
or the power structure still lay kind of behind the scenes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's sort of, we don't have as much of that magazine type format now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have a Substack, I have a Substack. Like, you have a Substack, maybe you have a website where you self publish, you have a Patreon. You're doing it all visually, like on TikTok or something. But at that time, there were a lot of like magazine type formats. There was Jezebel, and there was Feministing, and
Mm-hmm.
there was Good Men Project, and there was, XO Jane, and Your Tango. And these things existed where there was more of a traditional editorial structure. So if your name was on that masthead, especially for some reason, people expected a lot from me. So if something went bad, it was like, how dare you? It was a very
Yeah.
early aughts, how dare you was very much the ton of bricks that would land on you if anything went the way people didn't want it to.
I remember I used to write. Do you remember the Gloss?
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to write for them, and I wrote an article at one point about like why pigtail, like in defense of pigtails or
Mm.
something. It was very
Oh
2009,
my God.
and it's so ludicrous to think that that would have been like it's bananas, but it all the like blowback came at me and not the Gloss editors and whatever. So I feel you. But okay, so let's get to this moment that your entire I would say your entire career, and it sounds like your life changed as the result of a tweet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because that could happen. Do you want to read the tweet, or should I read it?
You read it because I don't have it in front of me.
I have it in front of me. So this is 2019. You tweeted, quote, "Do you have white teenage sons? Listen up. I've been watching my boys' online behavior and noticed that social media and vloggers are actively laying groundwork in white teens to turn them into alt-right/white supremacists. Here's how." All right. So I guess first, what were you thinking when you wrote that tweet? Why did you tweet that? What was happening in your
Well,
life?
I was still nursing my youngest child, so I would have a lot of time on my phone where she was on the boob. And I had these two older boys who 2019, I don't know, what were they, like 14 and 11 or something. And I was very closely monitoring their social media use. Now, you and I work in the digital space. So we look at it when our kids are using any sort of media, not just as parents, like, what's this crap, but also like, how did this get here? who wants someone to see this? That's something you do. And
Right.
when you're in digital publishing, you're working in that world, you know that nothing is by accident. There's no coincidence. Especially I had been ad buying for Good Men Project and then ad buying for a lifestyle magazine called Your Tango that's still doing really well, thriving.
So you understand targeting,
I understood
of course.
audience targeting. I understood tracking. I understood how they knew that when the kid was on YouTube on this video that he then went and looked at whatever and then this and that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, so I was watching what they were doing. I could go on their Instagrams on my phone while I was nursing this baby, and I could see, okay, he liked this, and I could see like who was DMing him of his friends, what they were sending each other, what his friends were seeing, what his friends were liking. And I was like, holy smokes, like these children are being targeted. Like this is targeted content and it doesn't look like it. And then also, how did it get in my kids' feed? What were they searching? I could see what they were liking. I could see what they were engaging with. It was like scatological, like poop jokes,
Mm-hmm.
nonsense, weird things. Like now the kids would have like the equivalent of like Skibbity Toilet at that
Right.
time, nonsense, and video games. And it was like Fortnite and Minecraft. And I was like, how did something that is so, it was sexist, not like boobs and butts, like sexist, like what we would now
Charlie
call
Kirk coded.
char
Yeah.
way worse. Like women shouldn't vote and here's why. Like Charlie Kirk never
Uh-huh.
said that. It was so gnarly. Um and violent stuff against women. And
Mm.
it was showing up in their For You page, not in the feeds from their friends. And I was like, I know what's happening and this is crazy and no one gets it. I would talk to people and be like, no, 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 listen, my kid would never search up this thing. My kid would never look up Hitler or whatever. And I'm like, they're not looking it up. And the parents had not caught up to this. So that's why it came about.
No.
I was like, you guys.
Well,
And you
it
how
sounds like magical thinking. I remember when when I first started noticing that my phone was listening to me because I would talk to
yeah,
a friend about like a clothing brand,
yeah,
and then an ad for that would show up in my feed. And we were like, that's weird, but
that
that
can't
can't
be.
be.
That's
That
illegal.
can't be.
Yeah.
And now we're all like, we'll be having a conversation and I'll be like, well, you'll see it in your feed
Yeah.
tomorrow. So just you'll
Yeah.
catch up.
I
And we
learned
all take
about
that for
that one
granted.
when I was talking about bedpans when my stepfather was dying. And I said, well, I don't know what kind of bedpan to get. And that is one thing I had never Googled and had never talked about before. And then all of a sudden it was home healthcare nurses in my feed. I was like, okay,
Of
now I
course.
believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you saw this and identified it
Hmm.
before people while people were still in the phase where they're like that's not true, that can't
Yeah.
happen, you're imagining it.
Well, and I said, it's coming through. They are desensitizing. And this is a big part of what I was noticing. The kids were being desensitized to things like the Holocaust by
Mm.
jokes because middle schoolers, and I'm trying not to go into like expert on boys phase. I'm trying to stay in that phase of like I was just a mom who knew a lot about digital media. They love irreverent things that don't make sense to parents. There's a reason why 6-7 got so popular, and it was because parents went, "What are you doing? I don't get it." And they love that kind of edgy thing, pushing against the
Sure.
limit, seeing how far they can go. So what I noticed was happening was it wasn't an accident that this was targeting them because um, it was very clear they wanted to desensitize them. They wanted to make them joke in an ironic way about the Holocaust so that when people started talking seriously about the Holocaust, there was an element of like, yeah, whatever. Just a slow creeping in of that. And
Mhm.
most of what I was seeing at the time was a lot of Holocaust stuff, a lot of Nazi stuff, a lot of Hitler stuff. And it was also kind of for us adults, it was also kind of the rise of us talking about modern fascism. So, like, at that time, we had, let's say it was 2019. So we had a whole global conversation about what fascism would look like now. So like the best thing that you can do if you want to move that window to the extreme right is to start getting kids to mistrust what their parents are teaching them
Yes.
about fascism as in Hitler, as in the SS, as in all like Soviets that were killing thousands and thousands of Jews, and like making them think like, well, I'm not so sure. And it was all subconscious, and watching that deteriorate, watching those efforts and understanding what it was, I just was like, holy shit. And no one I knew was really looking at their kids' timelines. They weren't.
I remember when my son first accessed, not Instagram, but he was, his friends and him first started being on social media. He was in maybe fourth grade, and he said to me something like, I said something about Greta Thunberg, and he goes,
Oh.
ugh, she's the worst.
Yeah.
And I went, her? Like record scratch. And I was like, who's Greta Thunberg? And he's like,
They don't
and
know.
I was like, of course he doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
He had been getting fed Andrew Tate stuff just because of his age and the other things he was looking at, as you said. And I think it made him feel kind of cool to like, I know more than my mom and that stuff. And but yes, so it's unbelievable.
We had that in our house about Amber Heard, and I know that Amber Heard and Johnny Depp are a major divisive topic to this day. But they're women who had experienced harassment as young women or even as adults. There were so many phrases and ways of discrediting her that became so commonplace. And one of my kids said something like it, like, well, you're lying like Amber Heard or something like that. I don't know. And I was just like, it was the same thing. I was like, my kid? I was like, do you know how many women in the world hear phrases like that when something horrific happened to them? And you and I don't even have to decide whether something happened to her or not. We can just have a conversation about what it sounds like to my ears and my body when other people make those jokes and those comments. And at that moment, it hit him. He was like, he really couldn't understand the big picture perspective on why Amber Heard and that story was so divisive. He had just heard all of these guys who didn't seem that offensive on the surface saying she was like a lying whatever, right?
Yeah. So you post this tweet. I assume you weren't thinking that it would have the impact that it did, but we never do.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
It's an interesting two sets of things happened. First of all, death threats, of course. It's the internet.
Wait, how? Like, how did it go?
I had a website
viral, though.
Oh, how did it go viral? I don't know.
Just the way things do.
Like anything else, when things go viral, it's because somebody said something that seems obvious that you never thought of. It also went viral because to a large population of people, it was the stupidest thing they'd ever heard, like radicalized via memes. And that was the big joke. It was like, this mom thinks that her kids could get radicalized by memes. And then they would always put up a meme that was like, had nothing to do with what I was saying. Like a meme of like that cute little girl in the car seat that's going like, that was the big joke. It was like this usually thinks that the kids are going to learn about Nazis by watching Minecraft videos. And it was like, that's what they always do though, right? They feel personally attacked because my experience with the people that earnestly think you're an idiot when you say something like this is that they think it might be true and they feel stupid. It's like slowly starts to be like a little needle in there that's like, wait, what have I seen and what am I doing? And then, of course, it's like, you're an idiot. That would never happen. It didn't happen to me. It wouldn't happen to anybody. You think boys are stupid. And then it became like, this is the worst mother in the world. And then it was like, we know your mountain bike route. And then it was like, here's your husband. My favorite one was when my husband was called my sugar daddy older husband. And I was like,
that.
This sugar daddy got a real raw end of the deal with these children that I've given birth to in this old ass menopausal body. And like, they find a picture of them. They tell me they know where my kids go to school. And at that point, that was a big time in swatting. So what did I have to do? Of course, then I have to go to the sheriff's department and be like, we have to be aware of swatting. I had to double password access to my kids at their school. Like, they wanted to scare me into being quiet, which at that moment, of course, I'm like, this is what's happening. I'm right. Like, you want me dead. That's how I know I'm right. Like, this was what the accelerationists and, what sort of the new form of neo-Nazis wanted. That's what they were doing. And now they're pissed.
And going after things that have nothing to do, of course, with the content of what you're posting. I mean,
yeah.
going after your parenting,
Yes.
your husband is his financial status,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
This is so, I mean, that's trolling 101. It's textbook.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I don't want to overstate it, but I don't think that happens to men at all to the same degree when
You
they
want to know
express
when I
a
see it
belief
happen to
online, does
men?
it? Yeah.
I see it happen to men when they're talking about gun control. The
Oh.
the big like First Amendment kind of trolls or whatever. I'm not talking
Second.
about Second
Is it
Amendment. Yeah.
second?
I've been
Okay.
talking about First Amendment a lot with other stuff, so now my brain is on all the big
You should
2A
know your amendments.
people. Yeah, and I'm not talking about the people that have a handgun at home for safety. I'm talking
Yeah.
about like the people that want everyone who's talking about, you know, gun regulations to fall in a pit. I have seen horrifying things happen to normal people. Carter Gaddis was a dad blogger who said something after Parkland or one of the shootings, and he was getting death threats in writing in his mailbox at his home. And everything he ever said, he was a sports journalist before he was a dad blogger, was torn apart piece by piece, and like pictures of him from when he was young. So that's when I see it happen to men. Is when that
that's really
masculinity thing is
interesting.
challenged. Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously I operate in a very female-centric sphere online, so
Yeah.
I have noticed that more or less any opinion that I can express that would
Yep.
be divisive goes straight back to appearance, shitty parent, can't get a man, or
Yeah.
being supported by man.
I think that men, especially at that time, so in the last 4 years, there's been a big push in like men healthy masculinity online, and like some really neat influencers doing cool stuff. But before that, I think men who were willing to really push against what was supposed to be manly did experience that. Again, that goes back to that patriarchy thing, is like they're trying to create healthier masculinity, which pushes against patriarchy, which makes the people in power mad and scared. So, you know, they're going to fight against that the same way they fight against us. But women on women stuff is different.
So this went very quickly from discussion and blowback to danger for you. And it must have affected your family and your kids to some extent. I know that you said somewhere that you sat your kids down and had them watch a YouTube video criticizing you. So tell me about that.
So in that time, and even now, a lot of boys and young men watch these videos where it's like one guy talking about the news, right? There's this thing that happened, and look at this stupid idiot that's doing this stupid thing. And then here's this hero that's over here fighting for this thing, and like showing clips or talking about like the internet scandal du jour, right? And that was, my kids loved that stuff.
Like a masculinized talk soup kind of thing?
Exactly that. Let's hope nobody listening to this is under 40, because they didn't understand any words I've said. So it's very relatable to these young men. So my sons had some that they watch, and mostly they watch people who were talking about other people playing video games. It was very dull. I know. We do a whole show about that torture. This guy was like, and this effing B word of the day, and there's a picture of me. She wants her boys to turn into girls. She's whatever. He also like summarized my argument in that tweet thread in such a way that it sounded kind of like what I was saying, but it was wrong. So I had my kids watch it, and I was like, is anything that this guy's saying about me true? And they were like, no, that's not what you were saying. I'm like, exactly. How do you feel about this guy saying this about your mom? And they were like, what an asshole. Like, how could he do that? Like, doesn't he realize you're a real person? And I said, this is your lesson. For the rest of your life, people are going to tell you what to think about other people and topics, and you'll remember this because you know he's wrong, because you know me. So when someone goes on a rant about someone else, remember this in your head and look into it yourself. What's true? What's not true? Never buy everything one person says. Ever. It's not how.
What a lesson.
It was a huge lesson.
What a gift.
And who
Truly.
gets to give that gift? You and me. Like there's
Mhm.
10 of us in the world, Rebecca Wolf. Like who can
Yeah.
say somebody's tearing me down and here's what they're saying. And now
Mhm.
you need to make sure you never do that.
Yeah, I did that with my kids when, I was so worried when they were like little that they would one day grow up and read things about me online and they'd believe them and
Yeah.
they'd hate me and whatever. And then as they became old enough to have this conversation, I sat them down. I was like, here are some of the things that people say about me online,
Yeah.
and went through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like in that moment, it turned from a fear into a tremendous gift because I was able to say to them, they don't know me. Why are they saying this? What's happening in their mind? What are they trying to achieve? What are they
Yeah.
trying to feel? I truly, I consider it a blessing
It is in
in
that
some
way.
ways, in that way,
It
because
takes how else are you, we're so lucky we can do it that way. And an interesting thing, and I feel like you'll relate to this, it's so niche, but one way that people have attacked me for 15, 16 years is to say that my boys are going to grow up to be, like little pussies and I want them to be girls and they're going to be
mhm.
weak and not able, she's raising these little pussy whatevers, right? They should see my boys. And
Oh,
all I keep wanting to be like, I have these
do you mean those guys up there?
enormous, yeah, 6'6" and 6'3". One's a bodybuilder, one's a baseball athlete. Like, um, I have to stop myself and go, I don't have to prove this to anybody, right?
Right.
I didn't even make the boys this way. I don't know how they are. I was a goth. Like, I don't get how they even became jocks. It doesn't make sense, right? So, but part of me wants to be like, you were wrong all along. Look at these big men with tattoos. Like, it's
Yes.
so silly. But also, I'm like, that buys into the story about masculinity they were always selling, right? That
Yes.
if
It's like, but what if they
Yeah.
weren't?
Look at
What
these
if they
highly
were
masculine man box men with muscles and girlfriends. I was a good mom all along. And that's
Mhm.
bonkers because I would have loved for one of them to be gay and do theater. Like, I don't
Of
know what to
course.
talk to with them about sometimes. Like, God, why can't one of you love shopping? It's so upsetting. Like, who's going to watch Heated Rivalry with me? It's so sad. This buying into this story about like, no, I was a good mom. Look, they play sports. Like, what?
Look, I mean, it like my kids they're doing well. But what if they were struggling in
Yeah.
ways that were actually specific to
Yes.
the criticisms that people had levied against me when they were younger through no fault of my own,
Yeah.
perhaps, but that would be very, very
Yeah.
hard to reconcile,
Well, and like people
right?
will say things like, your child is going to become a drug addict because you're a horrible mom. Those are the kinds of things that people will say to you when you are a
Sure.
woman online. And
Yes.
now, God forbid, one of my children develops an addiction. In my head, it's like I did this to them because they planted that seed. It couldn't be the 47,000 generations of addictive people before on both of their parents' side before them. No, it
Mhm.
has to be the fact that I was a bad mom and like Bob, who was probably actually typing from Russia on like 18 different computer screens as a professional troll, said it. But it does worm its way in, and you have to be constantly like reparenting yourself and being like, none of this actually has to do with anything, and you don't have to buy into this.
So you do this thing, it goes hugely viral, it creates all these upends your life in so many ways. And I know that take that on as like, all right, come at me. But
Yeah.
did it ever, you must have gone through periods where you were like, I can't, I don't want to do this. I don't
Oh my
want to
God,
put my
Jordan,
voice and face out.
I have to tell you the weirdest thing ever. The thing that made me, the thing that made me be like, I got to get out of this was I, I tweeted how much I loved the Ghostbusters that had the women cast and the hate that I got for that. The It's so hard for young people to understand with AI, but it was so upsetting. Someone took an image from, it was like Thanos, like strangling someone, and they put my face on the one that was being strangled. It was very angry dorks. And they were so scary. I
I
was so scared. It was unrelenting. Twitter was such a big part of my self-promotion. At that point, I had like 25,000 followers. They were very engaged. I had like Cory Booker and like a million famous people follow Van Jones and like a zillion followers that were super deeply engaged. And so I used it so much to promote my work and promote whatever that I couldn't read them. I couldn't read normal tweets because it was just like nonstop. Like, you don't know shit about comedy and Harold Ramis hates you. Like, just shit. Like, now I would just be like, what? But that was the one time I was like, I can't do this. Yeah.
So you went and you wrote Talk to Your Boys, which is so important and so incisive, and I just it really is a book that I go back to when I have questions about my own 14-year-old. And even when you first mentioned to me that a year or two ago that you were writing this book, I remember having not a like, oh no, but like it still felt like people might react to it as anti-girl power, as anti, and I was talking to my son about it a couple of years ago. This comes up from time to time where he's like, when he was younger, it was like, well, are boys just bad?
Yeah.
He was like, it's all like, listen to women, believe women, protect women, raise up women. And he's like, that's all great, but I don't hear any of that for boys. And it almost seems like if I try to speak, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And he did not know how to reconcile that. And you really took that on in such a truly brave way, because it is increasingly less, but especially a few years ago, that is a very rocky line, right?
It is.
To support, right?
Yeah. For many, I think I was kicked out of the Cool Feminist Club because of that, because of saying like some of this messaging is not working. It's pushing people further away. And once my boys were adolescents, going through just what your son went through, where it was like, where do I fit with this, right? I started to see the people that are affected by it most are not grown adult men. It's these adolescents who are hearing it and seeing it. So my favorite slogan as an example of this is "The future is female." So when you and that was the big thing when Hillary Clinton was running for president, was the future is female. You and I know that means in the past, leadership has always been male, but in the future, leadership can be women and it's going to be great and girls are going to be. So that was how we read it. But if you don't know all of that history of male dominance, you're like, the future is female. Well, what about me? I'm not female. Like, it's literally saying to them in their brains, remember, their prefrontal cortexes are not fully activated yet. They're not necessarily pulling at the little strings and weaving them together the way that we do. I don't belong here. I'm not wanted here. Because they're not going to grasp the nuance. Developmentally, they're not designed to grasp nuance, right?
No, and they don't have the decades of entitlement of experience with the benefits accrued to men by virtue of their gender that we do at our age. And they're just kids, the same as their sisters, and they don't understand.
A 10-year-old in 2015 was not sitting there going, let me go look at who's a Supreme Court justice and the gender of that, right? So that message got lost. But what I see now is less about, people are pushing back less about the fact that we're paying attention to boys, because now I think everybody knows that there's a crisis around masculinity. It is everywhere. Everyone's talking about Scott Galloway, made it very popular. I disagree with him on, well, let's say 45% of the ways he's approaching it, but he did make it really popular to talk about. What we face, the pushback we have faced in our early book talks, is that people feel like their stereotypically masculine sons are being degraded by the concept of talking about how all masculinity is okay. And we've learned as we've gone that we have to make it clear that we think jocks are cool.
Yeah.
I like jocks.
You don't have to reject more traditional forms of masculinity.
Yes. We didn't realize we had to be overt about it. But a lot of people will say, It's not, my son is a very stereotypical boy and I don't think he's bad. And we were like, where are they getting the idea that we think he's bad? And we
Sure.
realized we have to say it overtly. Is like, if your kid is the captain of the football team, that's a great way to be masculine. If your kid loves theater and, is very into makeup artistry, that's a great way to, there's a million ways to be a good boy. In saying that, we have to make sure that we say captain of the football team, the president of the student body, whatever it is. Those are great. Those are great things. There's nothing bad about any of that in any way. And then people are like, oh, thank God. Because they're worried that we're going to shame these boys now for being typical.
So I might have to cut this out because it's such a ridiculous question to ask you, but something that my ex-husband and I used to uh, sort of go back and forth about was I was like, I expect him to open doors for
Hmm.
people, but I guess specifically like an older woman or a woman.
Yeah,
And I was like, if you're on a date, open the door. Duh, duh, duh.
right.
And my ex was like, well, isn't that counter to
Yeah.
everything you're trying to teach them about feminism? How does one talk to your boys, Joanna,
Okay.
about little
I don't
things
think
like
this is a
that?
ridiculous question at all. This is a question that I think is really important. So I did not teach my boys to open the car door for girls when they started dating. I taught them to look at situations in which they could be helpful. So it's,
Mm.
if there is, like, if let's say we've got John Cena and he's like a big muscular man who can solve any problem, or The Rock, right? If he's got a 2-year-old in one arm and 3 bags of groceries in the other, please get off your ass and go help that dude, right? If he's carrying a giant toolbox, he's going to go fix things because he's a manly man and his arms are full. Go take that chainsaw off his back. I don't know. Like, be helpful to whoever. So if you're in a situation with a woman, what are the ways in which you're going to be helpful to her? You're walking down the street and there's a woman walking in front of you and you're on your own and you've got your hoodie up and it's getting dark. How are you going to be helpful to her? Well, one of the ways you can be helpful to her is make sure that she knows you're not a threat and cross and go away from the road. Put your hood down, fall behind a little bit, turn and go a different route.
What's your feeling on chivalry?
Well, I think what I have told my boys and what I would tell anybody is, a lot of people are going to read your chivalry as a sign that you're a good person. A woman might think it's romantic, a girl might think it's romantic when you're on a date with her, and so that's okay. Be chivalrous. But the original chivalry codes weren't just about women. It was about, the knights they
Honor.
were
Yeah.
men of honor. So be a
Hmm.
man of honor. And so, if you want to bring a girl flowers on a date and meet her mom and dad and shake their dad's hand and have a nice conversation in a very traditional way, that sounds wonderful. But know that that's not something that's obligated. That kindness and thoughtfulness is not only expected of you when you're interacting with women, and it's not only expected when you want something from somebody. Why were they doing it on the dates, Jordan? Why did they open the car door? It's because they wanted to make you think they were good guys so that you would think that they were attractive so that you would hook up with them, right? So, like, be
So it's
kind to
about the
people that,
intention and
yeah,
not the expected reaction. Oh,
yes,
well, honestly, thank you. That
yeah.
I, I
I think
truly
your
didn't
son
know how
should be
to.
nice to girls, not just girls he wants to date, not just the ladies who grade his papers at school. I think he should be nice to girls like he's nice to boys. What does that look like? It's going to change in every situation. Should he be nice to girls that are mean to him? No.
Is there anything that you wish over the course of writing Talk to Your Boys? Are there topics that you're like, oh, I really should have, like something has changed
Yeah.
recently in the culture that you wish you would address?
I wish that we'd been able to talk more about body image stuff with boys. I interviewed a guy who is a bodybuilder. If you looked at his page right now, you'd be like, how is this guy human? And I said to him, how do I talk to my son about his goals in fitness if I don't know anything about it? And he actually gave us a framework. His framework was something like, ask him how much he wants to deadlift, ask him how much he wants to bench press, ask him if he thinks it's reasonable, and lay it out, come up with a plan so that you're collaborative on it. So A, he knows you're interested, and B, um, he has a plan for if there's a setback, and then be like, what do you think's going to happen when you get there? Because a lot of it is like, well, then I'm going to stop being bullied, or so-and-so person's going to have a crush on me, or I'll finally feel good enough, or my dad will finally start paying attention to me. And then you can tease apart the mythology around what being ripped is going to do for you in a way that you and I probably could have benefited from about being skinny in the 90s, right? To have someone be like, why? I understand you want to lose weight. I understand you want to look like Kate Moss. Like, what if someone had dug in with us about like what we thought would happen when we got to X number of pounds, right? Oh my God, I wish I could have written more about drunk driving. Dude, kids are driving drunk like crazy right now. Like, especially,
I thought that the kids weren't drinking. I thought that was one of the things that I thought they were all like, oh, that's unhealthy. You don't need to do that. That's not cool.
Less of them are drinking than they were Generation X, 70s, 80s, 90s, enormous amounts of drug and alcohol use. That's all, I mean, it's plummeting, but there are still kids drinking. Drunk driving had been reduced enormously. I don't have the numbers, but I'm going to guess it was something like 75% among young people when Mothers Against Drunk Driving started going into schools. They developed a program that worked so well. And then we got Uber and everything, right? And it was like, well, kids would never drive drunk. That's insane. They would call an Uber. They're driving drunk for so many reasons. I could write, I honestly, I could write so much and talk about this so much, but like, yes, they're drunk driving. And I wish parents understood. And I wish I had a script out there for how to talk to your kids about drunk driving, because
yes, please.
It's so bonkers. They're so cocky about it. And I think one of the reasons they're cocky about it is because they haven't watched people die from drunk driving accidents like we did. You grew up in the city, right? So you didn't have that thing, but I grew up in a rural area, and I could name 4 kids right now who died from drunk driving accidents when I was a child. So they're not seeing it, so it's just not in their head. They feel invincible. I don't know.
One thing I wanted to ask you about that came up actually at the dinner table last night. I'm horrified that my search history now includes the word clavicular, but
excellent.
That's where we've arrived at these days. Looks maxing.
Okay.
Is something I brought up to my son, and he's like, you don't even know what that means. Do you even know who clavicular is? And I was like, actually, son,
Mama
I do.
Did her research. You think I'm new here?
Come on. But my concern with him, he's like, why are you bringing it up? And I was like, well, I just don't know if that's something that you are, it seems apolitical on the surface. It's not, but I don't want you to care about, or I don't know tell me how do you
everybody
have that
wants to be maximally attractive. I don't so much because I'm going into my crone era.
What is looks maxing first?
The idea is you are a waste of a human being unless you are living up to your very highest potential of attractiveness to women. But this maxing thing has gone, they've extrapolated it out to all sorts of things.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't about women. That's what my son said. He was like, it's not about being attractive to women. It's about
then what is it?
Optimizing yourself.
Right. For what purpose? If he can keep going, it'll end up with like babes. It's going to come down to babes and boners. Like that's what's happening. We're teenage boys. So, even the incels that don't like women, that are looks maxing, they're doing it to intimidate other men or to have superiority over other men. And if you dig down into it, it always comes down to mate selection, right? And they always try and put some anthropological spin on it that no anthropologist would ever co-sign. The conversation I would have about maxing is, people have always done this. It's not new. I know it feels new, right? But the idea of trying to optimize your life, the thing I would say is, since the beginning of time, people have wanted to be attractive to other people, whoever they want to date. And that is normal. Men have, since the beginning of time, wanted to be intimidating to other men, right? We want social status. We want other people to approve of us. This is normal, okay? Part of the appeal of things like looks maxing is that they think that they've stumbled upon something brand new. They haven't. It's the same thing. And then the looks maxing thing, it has to do with like toning your jaw and getting the right jawline. All of these things fit right into this like be a strong man thing though. None of them are about having a tiny waist, right? Or delicate wrists. It's all like strong jaw, caveman face, like masculine. I would say to my kid, who do you think wants to do this? What do you think is motivating them for real? Right? And when we have these conversations, it's so hard to not be like, this is so stupid. Like, who would believe this? They're fucking idiots, because that's what I want to say, because that's how I feel.
Yeah.
But the kids, they need a different conversation, which is always zoom out, look at the big picture. Who's watching this? Okay, so I'm imagining, and you tell me what I'm imagining a 16-year-old boy who other boys have gone through puberty. They're much stronger. They are getting beards. They're getting girls. They're popular. Maybe he doesn't have as much testosterone in his system yet. He's feeling weak. He feels scared. He feels like an outsider. This is appealing to him because it gives him a sense of control over things that aren't actually all that controllable, right? You haven't gone through puberty yet. Like, tell it to your glands. It's not that you didn't go to the gym enough, right? So getting him to imagine who they're targeting this at is really important, so that then you don't have to say to him, why would you find this interesting? What are you lacking? Like, that's introspection. That they're not going to do that with their mom, at least not when we're cornering them. But it's more like, who's that guy? And then for that guy, would sleeping with mouth tape, where do we think that could reasonably get him? Like, is that going to make a girl who's now dating the football captain like him? Like, just like explore that together. And then my other favorite thing is, my little hack is, find a thing in it that you like. So it's like, what I really like about this is that these guys are basically saying to the world, I didn't feel good about myself, and now I do. So I don't like the way they got to feeling good about themselves, but I'm glad that he's admitting that he felt really bad about himself when he was skinny and had a weak chin or whatever. Like, finding that thread, or like, I really like
Sure.
that he's saying you should be getting 8 hours of sleep. It's really important that you get 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Whatever. I don't know if it's important for you for your jawline, but I like that. Like, finding those things so that they know you're not just being black and white about
Dismissing
it.
it, full stop. It does feel like, for some, I don't know if I'm making this up, but it does sort of feel politically aligned.
Very.
Why?
Well, they're, like I said, they're never promoting anything that would make them gentler, kinder, more thoughtful, better husband, better dad. None of that's part of any of that. It's all personal promotion of self. It's all about a very traditional form of masculinity that's about dominance. Dominance is the word. Like, why would you need to be the handsomest? Why would you need to be the toughest? Why would you need to scare other men? Why would you need this is a dominance thing. So also, it's hard not to equate that to, in my mind, and someone's going to say this is a stretch, to very kind of Nazi ideas of like the perfect Aryan face, which
I don't think
was
that's a stretch.
yeah, it was that very square jaw.
Optimization
Yeah,
and
optimization. It's
yeah.
all very eugenics. It's very like, you're not worth this world if you look this way. And these things that they're valuing are still not alien, excuse me, still Aryan features.
Absolutely.
It's
Very
still,
specifically so, in
yeah,
fact.
very specifically
Yes.
so. And even, yeah. So you can't take that out of it, but if you're talking to an 11 to a 14-year-old, that may not be what you lead with, because all they're going to hear is, you think I'm a Nazi because I like this looks maxing this guy, or this guy's black, how could he be a Nazi? Well, he's probably not, but he's buying into these notions. For me, and what I know about history as an old lady in the world, this is what it triggers.
Right. It's just fascinating to me that this whole conversation, like, it starts with you saying something out loud about
Yeah.
indoctrination through unexpected channels, and people are like, that's crazy, and look where we've
Yeah.
arrived at.
Yeah.
It's coming through a different, I mean, it's still coming through the alt-right channels, but it's so insidious that it can make you feel as a parent like, like, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
even know where the next one's coming from.
Yep. And you don't know.
And you don't know.
Some of us who have a history of dysfunction are really good at pattern recognition is like the thing that the kids are going to think is rebelling against their parents is probably where it's going to come from. But like if you're a parent of an adolescent, your head's not on an absolute fucking swivel. You're going to miss something. You're probably going to miss something anyway. So I really like when my boys will come to me and tell me something is happening, or I'll say, what do I not know about social media right now? It all comes down to the same thing, which is like being an ally to your kid in this world that wants to it's all about selling us something, and like we're in this together against that idea. Do you know who Nick Fuentes is?
Yes.
Okay. Nick Fuentes has this movement called Groyper. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it stands for, but it's like kind of like incels and the men who don't want to be involved with women. Like,
well, yeah, he says that I know that he's like, he's like, calls himself asexual or something.
Yeah, and he might be. People say he's gay, and then he's like, I'm not gay. I just don't like women, and I can't imagine I'd ever want to be near one. So I know, and that's a hero to young men. Cool. So Groyper was like his group, and you heard that there was like the Groypers wanted Charlie Kirk dead, like Nick Fuentes hated Charlie Kirk, so then whatever. So I call my boys and I'm like, like, how is there an extremist group full of young men that I don't know about? That seems like, my boys were like, I don't know what a Groyper is. They had no idea. And I was like I felt like I had climbed up the peak of the roller coaster, and now my boys don't know what Groypers are, and I do. And I was like, I'm in the clear. I've made it, you guys. So here's what's going to blow your mind. I was so ready to be harassed based on this book. Like, I was ready. My loins were girded. Things were.
I was worried.
Yeah, nothing. Now, I'm not trying to jinx it. I do have a wooden table in front of me I'm knocking on.
Got it.
It shows how far we've come that I can write a whole book. We can write a whole book where we never once imply that your child is heterosexual. It's completely sexual orientation neutral. We also have a section in the book that's specifically about if you think your son is gay and how to handle that. Talking to a therapist who's a gay man who works with gay men of like, what do you wish someone had done for you? Nobody said a thing. Like, we had a Fox News appearance and nobody said a thing about any of that. And that to me shows how much society has progressed. Now, mind you, we did it stealth. It's stealth. Right? It's not a political book. It's not a progressive book. It's a book that we wrote from our values, but we're not trying to make you do anything or believe anything.
Where can people find you, Joanna?
I've got a Substack that I'm irresponsible with called Zooming Out, if you really like getting your regular newsletters. And I'm on TikTok. I think it's by Joanna Schroeder, and Instagram.
Of course, Talk to Your Boys is available wherever books are sold.
It's a USA Today bestseller. Did you know that?
I did. Congratulations. Yeah. I'm so happy
it's doing
for you.
Okay. I can't believe I said all that publicly about nobody hating me, because I feel like the universe is listening.
Yeah. Oh, well, we knocked on lots of wood. I think that should do.
Yes,
that should do it.
Good.
That should do the trick. Thank you so much. I adore you.
Thank you for having me on. I love you. I miss seeing you.
I will see you soon in real life, as it were. Bye.
Yes.